Hello and welcome to my channel Distinctive Crochet. My name is Priscilla and today we're going to be working on the sleeve cowl tutorial using our knitting machine. I have a 48 pin Sentro, but please feel free to use any similar machine that you may have. And please stay to the end because I will show you how to wear this. Alright, let's get on to the materials. So you will be needing a pair of scissors, a 4mm crochet hook, a yarn needle. We will also be using several balls of waste yarn, so have those handy. And for this project, I will also be using a number 4 worsted weight yarn. I am using the Fireplace Comfort yarn bead from Hobby Lobby, but please feel free to use a similar yarn and weight. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is go ahead and put in the waste yarn on our machine. So go ahead and load your machine as you regularly would and add in about 5 rows of waste yarn. So once you have that done, I will meet you back and show you what to do next. Alright, so now that you have the 5 rows of waste yarn loaded into your machine, we're just going to go ahead and cut the waste yarn off. And then we need to go ahead and tie in our working yarn. I'm just using a regular knot here. So make sure you have that tied in. And then go ahead and put your working yarn into the tensioner bar into the tightest setting. Alright, and I'm going to clear my counter and work 90 rows for the sleeve part, and that gives me approximately 18 inches, so feel free to do a little less if you don't need it quite as long. And let's go ahead and get started with that. Alright, as your project gets a little bit bigger, what you can do is just pull it up and give it a tug and then set it down gently, and then it'll spin freely for you because the project is going to get a little bit larger. So if it's not spinning freely, then just go ahead and snug it, pull it up a little bit and drop it back down, and then it should roll around freely for you. Okay, so now that we have the 90 rows, the next thing that we're going to do is just go ahead and cut our working yarn. You want to leave a nice tail for that. And now we're going to grab our waste yarn and we're going to tie that in. And what we're doing is we're creating a space for the sleeve opening. So just go ahead and tie in the waste yarn. And then what we're going to be doing is we're just going to work the first 10 stitches in the round, and then that should give us a big enough space for our armholes. If your arms are a little bit bigger, you can go to 12 to 14 if you would like, but I'm just going to do about 10 the first 10 stitches. You want to use the waste yarn for that, and then you're going to stop. Alright, so once I have that, I want to go real slow so I don't miss it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is go ahead and cut the waste yarn, and you want to make sure you leave a nice tail. So, alright, and so now that you have that cut, the next thing we're going to do is tie back in our working yarn. And then we're going to complete the rest of the round with the working yarn. So just tie that in nice and tight. Alright, so now that I have that tied in, I'm going to put the working yarn back in the tension bar on the tightest setting. And then I'm going to go ahead and loop that waist yarn tail around the first pin, just to connect those two yarns together a little bit better while we're holding our stitches. So just around the first needle, and then you can just go ahead and continue on with the working yarn. So now I'm just going to continue on the rest of that round. So make sure you take it a little bit slow so that when you get back to that white needle, you stop there, and then you're going to tie back in your waist yarn, and we're going to complete that process for 2 more rounds. So it'll be a total of 3 rounds that we do this process. All right, and that's just going to give us a sleeve opening. All right, so I'm just going to cut that working yarn again and tie in some waist yarn. And then we're just going to work those first 10 stitches again in that waist yarn. Okay, and I'm going to put that in my tension setting, on the tight tension setting, and then work those first 10 stitches in that waist yarn. And make sure you take this nice and slow to be on the safe side. Alright, so I made it to that last stitch there. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut the waist yarn. And now I'm going to tie that in. Tying in the working yarn, and then I'm going to put the working yarn back in the tension bar on the tightest setting. And then I'm going to loop that tail around the first needle after that, and then just go ahead and continue on with the working yarn and just finish off that round. And now I'm back to the beginning again, so we're going to do this one more time, and this will complete our sleeve opening, and then we'll be able to go ahead and finish the other part. Alright, but first I'm going to tie this waist yarn in one more time. Put it in my tensioner bar, and I'm gonna loop this working yarn around as well. It's sort of the same idea as I did on the other end with the working yarn, the waist yarn. So now I'm just going to go ahead and work those last 10 stitches, or the first 10 stitches, one last time for the sleeve opening. Alright, I made it to my last stitch there, so now I'm going to cut the waist yarn, tie back in the working yarn, and then I'm going to put in our working yarn and put it on my tightest setting and go ahead and continue on. Alright. Okay, so now I made it back around, so now we can just continue on. And this next part that we're going to be working up is for the cowl that goes around your neck. And for that part, I wanted to do about 32 inches. So I'm going to be working 160 rows to get me to where I need to be. So you can go ahead and work another 160 rows, and that's going to be for the cowl part. So I'm going to go ahead and work my 160 rows, and then when I get finished with that, I'll come back to show you what to do next. Alright, and I made it back. So I did my 160 rounds for the neck cowl portion. Alright, so the next thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing the same thing we did before for the sleeve opening. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my working yarn and leave a tail, and then I'll go ahead and add in our waste yarn with a knot, and we're just going to be doing the same process. So we're going to just be working the first 10 stitches of the machine with our waste yarn to create the sleeve opening. Alright, so I'm just wrapping my tail from that working yarn around that first hook just to keep it attached a little better since I'm changing yarns. And now I'm just going to put the waste yarn into the tension bar and go ahead and work the first 10 stitches very slowly. Okay, so I did my 10 stitches, and now I'm going to cut the waste yarn and tie back in my working yarn. Just like that. And then I'm going to put the working yarn back into the tension bar and wrap that tail around the first needle. So now I'm just going to finish out this round with the working yarn, and then I'll complete those same steps 2 more times for the sleeve opening. Okay, so I made it back, and now I need to go ahead and cut my working yarn again and add in the waste yarn. Alright, so I'm just pretty much completing the same steps as we did before for the first sleeve opening. So go ahead and complete that same step for a total of 3 rounds as we did before. And then once you have that done for the sleeve opening, the next thing we're going to do is work another 90 rounds for the second sleeve. And then when you have that done, I'll go ahead and meet you back to show you what to do next. Alright, and I made it back, so I have my second set of 90 rows completed for the second sleeve. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut our working yarn and leaving a nice tail, and we're going to grab our waste yarn and we're going to add this in so that we can finish off. So we're just going to tie that in and work about 5 rounds of waste yarn. So let me put I'm going to wrap that tail around that first needle and put my waste yarn in the tensioner bar and go ahead and work it 5 rounds, and I'll meet you back. Alright, so now that we have our 5 rounds completed, go ahead and release your project. Alright, so now that we have our project released from the machine, I'm just going to go ahead and stretch it out and turn it inside out so that I can show you how to pick up these stitches so that we can remove the waste yarn from the cuffs. just grab one end for the cuff portion, and then we're gonna go ahead and secure those stitches so that we can remove our waste yarn. So grab your crochet hook and your working yarn. So this is just the bottom of the sleeve here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my working yarn and find where the knot is to start it off, and then I'm just going to go ahead and slip stitch to join the yarn right in there. I'm just going to take that bottom loop there and the one right on top, and then I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch to join right there. And that's the 4mm hook. Alright, so slip stitch that to join, and then we're going to be picking up the loops that are attached to the waste yarn so that we can release the waste yarn without them dropping off. Alright, so just go right under the loop right there, and then we're going to work a single crochet under each of those loops all the way around, and once we have that done, we can release our waste yarn. Alright, so I'm just working a single crochet under each loop to secure them. And make sure you are going under the yarn that is the working yarn, not the waste yarn, because we're going to be taking out the waste yarn once we have all the loops secured. Alright, I'm almost to the other side, so just keep going with the single crochet, and when we do get to the other side, we're just going to slip stitch to join to the beginning of that round. Okay, so now all we're going to do is go ahead and find where we started at, and then we'll just go ahead and slip stitch to join right into our first stitch. Okay, so now we can go ahead and cut our yarn, leaving the tail, and then just pull it straight through to finish off. Alright, so then you can go ahead and start to untie your knot and release your waste yarn. Alright, so once you have all of your waste yarn released from the project, then you can go ahead and do the same thing to the other cuff, and then I will meet you back when I have mine done. Alright, and I made it back, so now that I have both the cuffs completed, the next thing we're going to do is secure the yarn for the sleeve opening, and it's pretty much the same thing that we did for the cuffs. We're just going to pick up these loops here and work single crochets under each one, and that way it'll secure them where they don't get dropped. And we'll do the same thing for the top as well. And then once we have that done, we can go ahead and release our our waste yarn. All right, so let's go ahead and slip stitch to join. I'm just going to come up there on the stitch before, and then I'm going to go ahead and start picking up each of those loops and working a single crochet for each one. All right, and so once we get to the end, we're actually gonna like work around on the sides as well, so those stitches don't drop either. So I just got a couple more to go here. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is work on the sides of it, so that way those stitches will be secured as well. So you really just want to find any of them that look like they're kind of attached to the waste yarn, so that way when the waste yarn is released, then they won't come apart and unravel. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and turn and begin working on the other side. So we're just going to work these loops right here from this other side right all the way across. So just make sure you're picking those up in the working yarn. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and begin working on this other side to make sure those side stitches are secured, and then we can go ahead and slip stitch to join at the beginning where we started. I can't tell you like any exact stitches, but you just want to make sure that you're grabbing some stitches on the edge, and that should be good enough to make sure that they are secured. Alright, so now I'm just going to go ahead and slip stitch the join at the very beginning. And then I can go ahead and cut my yarn, leaving a tail, and finish off by pulling it all the way through. Alright, so now what you need to do is go ahead and take out the waist yarn from here, and then go ahead and complete the same steps for the other sleeve opening, and I will meet you back. Alright, so I made it back, and now what we're going to do is add a cuff to the sleeve, and we're just going to slip stitch our working yarn right into where the join is at, and then we're just going to go ahead and chain up 21 stitches. Okay, so now that we have our 21 chains, what we're going to do is work into the second stitch from the hook, and then we're going to go ahead and work into the back loop only, and we're just doing slip stitches. So go all the way up working slip stitches into the back loop only, and you're just going to do that all the way up to 20 stitches, and then I will meet you back to show you what to do next. Alright, so I made it back up to the top, and I did my slip stitches for the 20 stitches, and now I'm going to go ahead and single crochet into the next 2 single crochets, and then I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to skip those 2 single crochets we just made, and then in the back loop only we're going to work a slip stitch into those 20 slip stitches from the row before. Alright, so make sure you're working these nice and loose, and I will meet you back to show you what to do next. Alright, so I made it back all the way down to the end of my 20 stitches. So once you get to the end of it, you want to chain 1 and turn, and then you're just going to work the slip stitches in the back loop only of those 20 stitches. So make sure you don't work into the chain, just the stitches. You also want to make sure you're working loose so that your hook is easily able to get into the stitches from the row before, and keep an eye on your stitch count to make sure that you're not adding any or losing any stitches. Alright, so you should maintain 20 stitches throughout. Alright, so now I made it back up to the top. So all I'm going to do now is work a single crochet into the next 2 stitches. Then I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to skip those 2 single crochet I just made and slip stitch in the back loop only of the row from before. Alright, so slip stitch into the back loop only all the way down, and just keep working in that same manner until you get all the way around your sleeve. Okay, and when I get done, I will meet you back to show you what to do next. Okay, so I made it back. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to be joining the 2 sides together. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to work in the front loop on this side, and then I'm going to work into the back loop on this side. and I'm just gonna join them together with a slip stitch. Make sure I'm matching up the stitches from each side, and then I'm just gonna slip stitch them together, and I'm gonna keep working in the same manner all the way down till I get to the end of the cuff, until it's fully closed. So you can either do it this way, or you can also get a yarn needle and sew it closed together, however you prefer. I'm just choosing to go ahead and do a slip stitch for mine. Alright, so just keep work in the same manner all the way down, and then when you get finished, you can go ahead and cut your yarn, leave a tail, and finish off. Alright, so I will meet you back when I have mine done. Alright, and I made it back. So this is my last stitch here. So you can go ahead and cut your yarn if you haven't already, but I have mine cut. So all I'm going to do now is just pull it through to finish off. And now your sleeve cowl is done. So here is the seam from that there. And if you roll it over, this is what it looks like on the other side. So you can wear it as a rolled cuff if you like as well. But all we have to do now is weave in all of our ends, and then it will be completely finished. So once I have my ends woven in, I will come back and show you how to actually put on the sleeve cowl so that you can know how to put it on and wear it. Okay, so go ahead and weave in your ends, I'll weave in mine, and I will meet you back to show you how to put on the sleeve cowl. All right, so I will meet you back when I have it done. All right, everyone, so thank you again for working on this tutorial with me, and now I'm going to show you how to wear the sleeve cowl. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to find where the sleeve opening is, and you're just going to do one side at a time. So you're just going to slip the sleeve all the way up so that it fits over your shoulder. Okay, and then once you have it on like that, the next thing you're going to do is wrap it. You want to hold the weighted part, so you want to make sure it's not too tight. So you want to wrap it around the front, and then you're going to wrap it again like that so that it crosses over. And now you're going to find your other opening, and then you're going to slide your arm. Don't weight it down though, you just make sure you slide it on your arm, okay? And then you're going to snug it up over your shoulder as well, okay? And once you have it on like that, and you are styling, it is super cute, it is super warm. There are the cuffs on there, so I really like how that turned out as well. And yes, if you still have a favorite t-shirt that you like to wear, and your arms are getting cold, this is perfect for that. It's perfect for underneath your favorite poncho. Just grab some yarn that'll match and work one up. Alright guys, so I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. Let me know if you're going to make one, and share this video out if you enjoyed the tutorial. Alright everyone, thanks again for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you all in the next one.